Well, thanks a lot for staying with us here on Sunrise Live on E on this Friday morning as we continue with our issue of the week discussion. It's all about young people in South Africa. Now, the month of June is about really about the injustice of the past. How do we address it? How do we remember it? How do we commemorate it? But also, what have we done to pave the way for young people in this new dispensation? Each year, we highlight, as well as get a chance to hear about some of the issues that young people are confronted with in South Africa. And these include issues around education, unemployment, drug and alcohol abuse, the involvement of community sectors, etc. So this morning on Sunrise, as we launch Youth Month, we speak really to some of the programs that we can anticipate. And joining us in studio this morning, we've got the Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Buti Manamela, as well as the Director at Youth Lab, Pillay. Remember, this is a conversation for you at home, so be part of it. Give us a call, 011-447-1742, alternatively 1620. Remember, we're also taking your Facebook as well as Twitter comments, so be sure to send us those comments as well. It's all about you, young person, this morning. What would you like to speak about? Thank you so much for the both of you for joining us this morning. Buti, let's start off with you. When we're looking at, and year on year, we have got various focus and agendas when it comes to Youth Month, as well as some of the issues that we're going to be touching on in terms of prioritizing. This year, 2017, what is the priority for young people?
Look, the big issue. Good morning. The big issue for young people is employment, it's entrepreneurship, and I think it's also education. And those are the issues that we'll be looking at. In fact, what the president has asked is that every government department, every government agency, every state-owned enterprise must be going particularly to young people in the countryside, in the rural areas, to essentially say to them, these are the opportunities that government have, in these, three areas. And I think that, the big challenge is to really get those young people who are not in employment, not in education, or some form of training.
They call it the NEET.
Exactly.
So not in education, not in employment, and also do not have training.
Yes.
And they're sitting at about, I think, a whopping 38% or so? Yeah.
Yes.
Of young people between the ages of 15 and 34 are NEETs, basically.
Yeah. And so I think that's the one part. But one of the other part is we're taking to Cabinet this month a framework on National Youth Service. And this is a reworked and rethought National Youth Service program, whose intention will not only be, to get young people to be in service to their communities, but to also get them, some form of skills, and we think that, we can be able to, by 2020, get close to 1 million young people involved into a National Youth Service program. So part of the big programs for this year's Youth Month is about, the National Youth Service. But what I think we want to emphasize and have been emphasizing, throughout the commemoration of the Youth Month is that we should not only be seeing government doing something around young people or for young people only in the month of June, but that it must be the priority, and that's why youth work has been anchored in the presidency, so that the whole of government should at all times be involved in in youth development work. So those days when youth work or youth development was only about what the NYDA does are the days of the past. It's about what each and every government department is doing to implement.
And we're going to expound further on that as the conversation continues this morning. But I think from a youthful perspective, I mean, you from Youth Lab there, Pearl, and when we're looking at the work, and when we're looking at the statistics now, versus the work that various organizations are trying to do to upskill the youth and to train and develop the youth, versus the feeling of the youth on the ground, are we getting the message home? Because it appears as though in the recent research has shown that actually young people's despondency and the discouragement has increased by 8%. Yeah. And that is the general overall. When we take into consideration that this country is primarily made up of young people, that means a whole lot of people are walking around discouraged today.
No, definitely. Thank you for having us, by the way. I think something that we've also found in a lot of the work that we've done at Youth Lab is that largely a lot of young people feel quite ignored and kind of left out of either planning for where the country needs to go or just having a role in their own development. I think we kind of get caught in focusing on particular areas. So you'll find that if you're in Cape Town, there's certain areas that people go to all the time. If you're in Johannesburg, there's certain areas that people go to all the time. And there are places that are more neglected than others. And when you speak to young people, they'll give you a quick example. We ran an elections project, a kind of voter education project last year during local elections. And we went to a place called Khalishiwe in Kimberley, and we spoke to young people there who didn't even have a sense of what local elections were, who didn't even know about registering to vote and that kind of thing. And lots of them had said, well, I mean, we don't need to vote because it's not like anything happens for us anyway.
Hold your thought there, because I want us to touch on that. Many times, and especially when it comes to around social activism, because being able to participate in elections is all about social activism. How am I involved as a South African? If you've got despondent young people, because that is clearly a sign of despondency. Despondent young people are saying, why is it? Because I don't care. Let me ask you this. Do you think that whilst we were trying to develop the nation and once we were trying to, and post-apartheid, when we were developing young people and giving opportunities, what we failed to do was to teach young people how to fend for themselves, to a point now that we've got a generation that expects government to do something. Entrepreneurship. Young people are expecting government to fund them instead of expecting government to make policies that enable them to provide their own form of solutions.
Look, I mean, the running theme, for instance, in the National Youth Policy is that government's intention is not to give young people handouts, but to give them a hand up, to be able to, be that platform for them to be able to pursue entrepreneurship, for instance, for them to be able to, find jobs, or for them to be able to, get access to education institutions. And I think we need to create a balance. Of course, there is a sense of entitlement, but I think that also young people out there are saying, look, all that we want is opportunities to be opened up. So it's not generally that we entitled to this, and I think that we really need to applaud those young people who, despite all the odds, have been able to make it. And I think that part of the central message that we'll be sending out, particularly to schools, is to say to young people, government can only do so much, and that you there as so to encourage agency, to encourage young people to on their own be able to go out there and succeed, and it's also part of what we need to be careful of as politicians, because we sometimes go there and make all these crazy commitments and promises and all of that as though young people on their own are incapable of, creating change. I'm quite worried if, we still have young people in this day and age who, and it's a reality, who do not have a sense that, their elections, they can take part in elections, they can be representatives of the people. The world politically is getting younger, and I think
in all fairness, the Arab Spring was started by young people, right? Entire countries were brought down by young people, including our very own apartheid system was done by young people. It's scary that with freedom, it appears as though young people are not the ones that are free. And it's all about you this morning. Join us in conversation. It's all about Youth Month. So we're launching it. We've got the Deputy Minister in the Presidency. If you've always wanted to speak to him and tell him your grievances, you're going to allow us to speak to you this morning. And make sure that your voice is heard. We definitely want to hear from you as a young person. What are you unhappy about? What are you dissatisfied about? What would you like to see happen in your country? You're speaking about politicians. You're making a very valid point here. We're going to go into issues around unemployment, and we're going to go into issues around, right now, femicide, big one amongst young people even. But when you're speaking about issues of how young people have been feeling entitled, how young people have been despondent, etc., politicians who use the very same young people for their own personal gains, right? And we always see it as the roundup and the lead up to election, even to dress up in military uniform, for example, the age of 30, right? How is it that young people can participate? Are we dealing here with politics of the stomach? That's why young people are participating even in programs that are to the detriment of themselves.
I mean, I think it depends on who's bringing forth programs, right? So I think firstly, it's not entirely wrong for young people to be entitled or to feel entitled to certain things, because what is the role of the government if not to provide certain services and programs, especially for young people? So it's not like young people are saying, well, the government needs to give us fancy cars. We're talking about things like access, things like being able to just know that you're taken seriously and your voice is actually important to the state. And I don't think that's a bad entitlement to have. And when you think about youth participation, if you go into lots of, especially township communities, there are young people that are doing real community work outside of the political space, outside of the sort of recognition and celebrity that can come with being sort of in, you know, certain formations in the country. And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of it is politics of the stomach in the sort of mainstream youth development, but I think we shouldn't ignore that there is a large sector of young people that know exactly what needs to happen in their communities, and with or without resources and assistance are actually going and making things happen. The problem then comes in because these people are very resource strapped, they're very opportunity strapped, and there's only so much that they can do, but because they might not fit into a certain sort of archetype of what a young person should be, so they don't wear a certain political hat, or, you know, they're not...
So they're not a comrade on the other side, they're not an activist on social media on the other side, they don't have an Instagram account.
The populist sort of personality, then there's lots of then barriers to the kinds of work that they can do.
Chef, we've got a problem.
Yep.
We've got a young person who wants to get into chef school and he can't, and there's no finances at home. What are the ways to do?
Okay, so currently in Joburg we're running 2 programs. One's from the Department of Social Development and another one is from the Tourism Department.
Got you.
So around the Gauteng, or not Gauteng per se, but like in South Africa, the other provinces, we've got SACA, where you can just contact SACA and they'll hook you up with the program for the tourism. So if you're in Cape Town, if you're in Durban, just contact SACA, and you know, normally every year they would advertise this on radios and on their local television stations. So just look out for that, and yeah.
How do you spell it? S-A-C-C-A?
SACA, just S-A-C-A.
S-A-C-A.
Yeah, South African Chefs Association.
South African Chefs Association. There we go, Betty. That's on one side. And then I'm going to give you an email address. Okay. Mr. Deputy Minister,
Thank you.
Yes.
What is your email address?
It's Buti, B-U-T-I,
B-U-T-I,
at dpme
at dpme
.gov.za. Yeah.
Great. So there we go. We've got some information for you. And one such is saying that you're not doing anything. How do you respond to that?
Look, I mean, I think that, you know, we have been able to change, you know, government's perception and perspective about youth development. You know, more towards, and I said earlier, more towards a drive by all of government to do something for young people and with young people, instead of you know, relegating it to the National Youth Development Agency. Of course, we need to be seeing a lot more resources being directed towards you know, youth development program.
Is the NYDA relevant in your opinion?
No, of course it is. Of course it is. And I think what the bigger challenge with the NYDA has obviously been its reach. You know, I mean, we have 14 branches. They'll be opening 2 more branches of the NYDA. We've got local youth development offices where young people can go in their municipalities and everywhere else to say what is it that the NYDA, you know, can be able to help them with. So I think it's actually more relevant than it should be. We did a study, you know, to look at what is government spending on youth development outside all the other things that you know, is being done in terms of education and all of that, but specifically on youth development. And government on every year is you know, spending close to 6 billion rand on youth development work.
I'm going to bring Pearl in. Pearl,
in its totality.
Government is spending about 6 billion rand. That means that the allocation of funds about 6 billion rand. In your opinion, are we seeing that money filter down? And are we seeing that money being appropriately utilized? Your face has spoken 1,000 words, so now you've got no choice but to be honest.
But I just put me on the spot in case I need funding at some point. Really thinking about what are the specific youth development programs that we have, who are they reaching, and when they reach these young people, what happens? So you go to a workshop, for example, that's hosted by government. After that workshop, how much better are your chances of finding a job? Is that workshop actually helping you as a young person? And I think a lot of the times, a lot of the sort of development projects that we might have are not actually addressing the actual challenge that young people are facing.
They're not making an impact.
And they're not. I mean, even agencies like, and I'm sorry, DM, but I'm going to have to differ with you, is that I don't think that the NYDA is as relevant as it could be. We've had lots of personal experiences at Youth Lab where we have tried in various communities around the country to get a hold of the NYDA and work with them to be able to pool our resources together and create more sustainable, higher impact projects. And it's been difficult. Speaking to young people around the country as well, they'll say to you, the NYDA is for comrades.
The NYDA is not relevant.
I don't think it is
Hold
as relevant.
that thought. We can drug issues.
I mean, our drug master plan, realizes that there is a big problem around drugs. And I think one of the biggest problems or biggest problematic areas is in Pretoria, without, profiling the area. And one of the other bigger problems is that it's a problem that affects young people, and again, so through social development, because we do not see it only as a criminal issue, but we see it also as a rehabilitative issue. We're seeing it also as a socio-economic issue, because most of the young people who are, into drugs and all of that is precisely because they're not involved or engaged into anything else. And those are the type of interventions that we are making. And again, I would want to appeal to, because I know that the NYDA branch in, and me and Pell are going to have a chat after this about their work
she
with
should be your consultant. On the ground.
But I know that the NYDA branch in East London is actually doing a lot of work with youth organizations and communities on the specific question of drugs, and I think Sia, should actually go. I heard he said he spoke
I
to
went to the
no,
NYDA.
but that's about his business. Yeah. That's what he went to them about. So I want to ask him to also go and speak to them about the drug issue. I'll also speak to the branch manager there to expect SIA, and they should collectively, together with the youth organizations there, work on the question of drugs.
What do young people do from now, before we wrap up the show, in your opinion? Pearl, how do we capitalize on the freedom that we've been given, the political freedom that is?
I think we need to come to a point where we realize that participation in youth development is not political and is not partisan. And it's got to be something that can include all young people around the country, regardless of what background they come from. But also we need to be able to create programs and opportunities where young people can see themselves in it. So you don't have to feel like, well, I need to have a degree or I need to be in a certain party or whatever in order to be able to actually participate. Yeah. So we need to just be able to open the space. We also need to look at civic organizations particularly, they're the lifeblood of development, and be able to see how better we can help and assist with resourcing, with being able to capacitate civic organizations, because they're the ones that do the work. Government can't be everywhere at the same time. I mean, they should, but they can't. And in their absence, we have civic organizations that are actually on grassroots level, but struggle with resources. And I think we need to be able to find a way, as young people, where we can contribute towards building these sort of organizations and building our civic power, but on the side of government and the private sector as well, to be able to actually capacitate these organizations so that in their absence, they can do their work.
As you said, programs that we can anticipate for Youth Month very quickly.
Look, I mean, the whole of government will be going out there into communities from today. In fact, a whole range of ministers and deputy ministers out there meeting with communities. But I think the key ones would be the President's meeting today with a whole range of youth organizations, but also with young people, to discuss, among other issues, some of the things that we're pursuing here today. 16 June, that's the main day in Ventersdorp in the Northwest. But I think the key thing is, what is it that we as young people are doing, not only to commemorate June 16 and Youth Month, but what is it that we're doing to effect the changes that are needed within our communities?